Spectrometrics has expanded our industry-leading Web Spectrum Viewer to include countries from across the globe. The Web Spectrum Viewer allows each country's spectrum allocation to be viewed across county-sized boundaries with advanced analysis into various spectrum depth, megahertz pops, licensed populations, and NR channel analysis. Today we're going to focus on the licensed POPs module that displays how much of a country's population can be reached through a carrier's held spectrum. To start this analysis, we're going to go into the US tool. Licensed population is found under the analysis menu. And this analysis actually opens up with Dish or EchoStar. That can be changed right here. The first analysis module focuses on band classification. So by looking at this, we can see in the table that Dish can cover 76% of the US population with their low band spectrum, and that is roughly 256 million people. Their low band spectrum, lower mid-band spectrum, would cover 63% of the US population, and their upper mid-band spectrum totals 98.89% of the US population. And thus, for a grand total, they can reach 98.89% of the US population. Those are broken down below in charts, where the chart on the left is the population, the raw numbers of population, and on the right, the percentage of the population, depending on what you want to show. You can download these charts just by clicking the blue circle. The second analysis is to look at the frequency bands. So we're looking at low band spectrum now for Dish, and again, all of this is post EchoStar selling their spectrum both to AT&T and to SpaceX. Although SpaceX hasn't closed, our future data type setting reflects transactions that are pending with the FCC. So that thus SpaceX is still being reflected in SpaceX's totals. So what we can see is that Dish doesn't have any 600 megahertz left. Their 700 megahertz still reaches 3/4 of the US population, thus their low band does. And then this is basically just a chart representing each of the low band frequency bands. If I switched here to lower mid band, you would see what Dish still has left. What we see is the AWS-1, AWS-3 total still is 63%, 63.9% of the US population. So they do have a large coverage of the United States that still sits here in the AWS-3 band. And then upper mid-band spectrum shows you that they have virtual entire US coverage or license area with the CBRS spectrum. With that, we're going to go ahead and change countries and go to Mexico. So in Mexico, we're going to still look at AT&T, kind of this time in the cross-border situation. And you can see that their low-band spectrum doesn't cover the entire country. You can easily pop over to our mapping, if you've seen one of our previous modules, and see what low-band spectrum depth they have and what geographic areas they don't have. Switching this to frequency band, AT&T doesn't have any 600 megahertz or 700 megahertz. It kind of makes sense. 600 megahertz in Mexico has not been auctioned yet, and 700 megahertz is held by a nationwide wholesaler. The last view is the band classification, is the channel block. So 700 megahertz, cellular, everywhere. So this is different channels. So this is the 700 megahertz, the 10 megahertz wide channel, and then this is the A band with just the smaller channels. I'm going to go ahead and jump over now to Canada. I'm going to choose TELUS. So TELUS has 93% of low band of the population, 100% of lower mid band, and upper mid band is 100%. Looking at frequency band information, their dominance in low band is the 700 megahertz spectrum, and cellular is not far behind, but they have just a little bit of 600 megahertz spectrum. When we go to channel block is interesting in this case because the 700 megahertz band, you can kind of define that A is kind of matches up well with T-Mobile's primary ownership in the US. BCD matches up with AT&T's, and then upper C matches up with part of Verizon's spectrum. And the last country we'll look at is Germany. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the carrier to Telefonica. And we're going to examine this low band spectrum. So we're going to look at frequency band, and you can see for that low band spectrum, Telefonica has it in all parts of the country. So with Germany being nationally licensed, essentially means that Telefonica has a block of spectrum at 700 megahertz, a block of spectrum nationally at 800, and an A block of spectrum at 900. You can verify this on the spectrum grid, and I think we'll go ahead and stop there. Thank you for taking the time to take a look at our licensed POPs module. Thank you.